Bees are simply pesky insects, right? Well, that's where you'd be wrong. Bees are essential to our ecosystem, our food consumption, and our economy. Bees contribute an estimate of $15 to $30 billion in annual agriculture productivity alone. Honeybees are the species most commonly used as commercial pollinators in the United States. They're managed and used to pollinate over 100 crops grown in North America. Many crops, such as almonds, which contribute $4.8 billion to the United States industry each year, rely on honeybees for more than 90% of their pollination. Honeybees don't only pollinate crops, they also pollinate wild and native plants, thus contributing to all the environmental and social benefits attributed to pollinators in general. We interviewed Miss Gable, an honors and AP biology teacher here at Eden Prairie High School who studied at the University of Minnesota Bee Lab, to gather her opinion on bees.
Okay. Hi, I'm here with Miss Gable, and we just have some questions for her. She's a bee expert, so Miss Gable, how do bees affect our ecosystem in agriculture in the U.S.?
Bees are one of our major pollinators, so they go to a plant to get nectar for food and end up spreading pollen from one plant to the next, which is how plants reproduce. So pollen is the sex cell of the plant and has to get to another flower in order to fertilize it. And so once that flower is fertilized, that's how we get fruits and nuts and things that we eat. So they help us by pollinating things that we then use as a cash crop for food. So.
Awesome. And then how do you think bees affect our economy, especially in agriculture?
Well, bees, to be able to pollinate that food, farmers need the bees to do that, to the point where there are companies that their whole job is to move bees around the country when those plants are actually ready to be fertilized. And so you have the impact of the people who do that as their job, and then you have the impact on the farmers who need that crop to grow. And then you have the impact on us because we need that food to buy. So.
Okay, and last question, what do you think we should do to regulate bees in our economy, and do you believe the government should partake in the regulation to keep our bee population healthy?
I think the government's probably going to have to in order to keep them healthy. Unfortunately, it's not one thing that's affecting the bee populations. It's a multifactorial issue. There's issues there's certain mites that get into a hive and can cause the hive to die. There's a fungus. And then there are certain insecticides that are something we can kind of take care of government-wise. If they can ban some of they're called neonicotinoids that can kill bees. And if we could, a lot of greenhouses are voluntarily not using those, but your big box stores still use those, and they affect bees. So if we could ban those, I think that would be great.
In a bad year, a bee colony might lose 15 to 20% of its bees. In the U.S., among crops that require bee pollination, the number of bee colonies has declined by 90% since 1962, meaning that unfortunately, bees are in danger of extinction.
The human race depends on pollination. You lose pollinators, you lose plants, you lose people. It's just that simple.
The most direct response to the decline of the bee population can be attributed to three main issues: bee-harming pesticides, monocultures, and climate change. In order to save the bees, we are commanding that the government passes legislation to prohibit the use of bee-harming and bee-killing pesticides. We're also calling for the regulation of monocultures to limit the expulsion of plant diversity in our agriculture. Finally, we propose a larger push and heightened regulations in clean energy movement. We need to completely ban all forms of pesticides, neonicotinoid pesticides, varroa mite control products, and chlorophyrotes. We also need to reward farmers for practices that help the bee population thrive. These reforms need to come in the process of focusing on clean energy. This is more than just a government issue that spans across our entire country. It is a national issue, spanning across our entire world. Our federal government needs to pass these laws to protect our economy, our entire environment, agriculture, and wild.
Get along with me, and I couldn't be
Join the
prouder to be in
movement to
front of
help save our
everybody today.
bees. and
We
our
need
world.
to save the pollinators, but we need to change the system, because farming is a system. Everything is interdependent. That's why as an organic farmer we tend to rely on biodiversity and crop rotation, and animals as part of that rotation. We need the government to stop supporting this monocrop agriculture that is killing not only our planet, the soils, the pollinators, but the people. Keep the hives alive!